Psalms chapter number 9. While you're turning there, this is the third service that we've been in Psalms. I promise I'm not trying to make a Psalms sermons, if you want to say that. I've just been doing a lot of reading lately throughout the book of Psalms. And a lot of things God has opened up and showed unto me and allowed me to understand things that are in our lives and in our cultures, in our daily walk. And each one of us, I think, can honestly say that we can relate with the psalmist David. Now, David, as he wrote, he wrote a lot of things of, and if you read a lot of Psalms, you're going to, in a way, kind of get downhearted and brokenhearted and depressed and saddened. And that's because you feel what the writer was saying. He had a heavy heart in certain ones of his songs and certain parts of the book, but then there's other places where that he was joyful and he was happy. He was given his heart to us. Now, as we're going to be looking here at chapter number 9 of Psalms, David is writing about a praise, about worshiping, but most of all, there's one, we're going to read all the way through to verse 9. But he was talking, or he'll be talking here in a moment as we look at verse number 9, about finding refuge in times of trouble. Now, we've looked at the shadow of his wing, we've dwelled in safety, and tonight, for just a few moments, we're going to look at a refuge in time of troubles. Now, each one of these messages that we've talked about, they have to do with life events. They've got to do with trouble, trials, tribulations, hard times in our life. And I don't know a single soul in this church tonight that is not experiencing something dramatic, a hard time, a difficulty. And I believe that as we look at this, I want you to find that nugget, if you will. I want you to find that refuge. Because each one of us needs a moment of break, if you will, or a moment of peace, a moment of hiding, a moment of refuge during our struggles, our trials, and our tribulations. And I'm going to tell you, if you don't find a refuge, if you don't find a moment's break or a moment to get away from it all, it will eventually pile up to the point that you will break. You know, I listened to a man talk the other day, and he was a psychiatrist, and he was talking about people in general. And his statement was along this line that people are alike in a lot of different areas. In a way, they're all like a pressure cooker. Now, for anybody in here that has ever done any kind of canning or cooking with a pressure cooker, you know that you put that little jiggler valve on there, and that thing jiggles until you reach the approximate pressure that you want. And when it gets to that pressure, at that moment is when you begin to watch it, time it, and get ready to remove it from the heat. You don't want it to get no hotter than that. You don't want it to get no colder. You want it right there. Well, you know as well as I do that if something goes wrong, that pressure cooker will completely wipe out the stove and wipe out the ceiling above it. My grandmother had one, and the seal had gone bad in it. And it was pressure, and it was building up to a certain amount, and all of a sudden it blew up. And it wiped out everything from the stove up. They had to come in and replace all that, and my point to that is this. Many of us are just like a pressure cooker. We keep bottling things up. We keep it hoarded on the inside, and we look at people, and I know of myself as guilty as a lot of others. When somebody looks at you and they say, "How you doing?" What's your first response? Fine, everything's good, and we do our very best to put on the biggest smile we got. And on the inside, we're broken, we're troubled, we're just ready to just scream bloody murder. You can't get away from that. You see, I'm afraid that many of us may reach a point of breaking if we don't take this moment to release it, to find a refuge. Now, I'm not saying run out here and tell the world your problems, because the world's going to laugh at you. What I am saying is this, that during your trials, your tribulations, your heartaches, find somebody to talk to. Find somebody that will sit and just listen to what you have to say. I heard another man or another doctor make a statement. He was talking about men and women in general. And men and women think differently, they act differently. And he was describing their brains. And he said that, and I've told you this before in a way, that a man is like a waffle and a woman's like a plate of spaghetti. But he said a man is like a box. They have plenty of boxes in their head, and each box does not touch the other box, and you don't get in more than one box at one time. A man has a mindset of one thing and one thing only at one time. Whereas a woman was like a ball of wire. And it's being pushed by emotions going every which direction. And she knows every page she's on at the very moment she's on, and she can multitask. But one thing that he made a statement about was that a man has what they call a nothing box. Women, in case you didn't know that, they do. And he explained it very well, and this does tie in, I promise. And he said a man has what's called a nothing box that a woman can't get into. That nothing box, how many women in here's ever looked at your husband or whatever and said, "What you thinking about?" And he says, "Nothing." He's in his nothing box. And in all honesty and seriousness, 99% of the time, and man is the only one that can do it, for just a few moments has nothing on their mind. They're completely clear. He's in his nothing box. But he went on to say that men, when they have a stressed day or they get so stressed, they go to their nothing box to unwind. Whereas a woman has to vocalize what's going on up here. And they want to talk to the men, talk to the husbands. And they want to get it off of their chest. Now hang on. And when they begin to let it loose, women, just so you understand, you're getting in more boxes than that man has available. He wants to fix it. But here's the point. Women go to their husband or their whoever, a man, and they begin to let everything out. And a man once asked the question, he said, "She tells me all her problems. What am I supposed to say to her?" He said, "I don't know what to say." And this doctor said, "You don't say nothing." He said, "She's not looking for an answer." But you see, the way a man thinks, a man's to fix it. Whereas you talk to a woman and she'll sit there and listen to you. And she'll process everything. Why do men go talk to other men? Because they offer a solution. They fix it. All of that boils down to this right here. What we're going to look at is a refuge in times of trouble. And there's one refuge that ain't going to go out here and tattletale on you. There's one refuge that you can break your heart to by yourself. Just you and him. And he won't ever let it leave his lips ever again. It won't be told throughout the community. I know the community I grew up in, Cedar Creek, if somebody mashed their finger, within 5 minutes the entire community knew about it. They had what they called the Cedar Creek stores. And it was the gossip community. And everybody would meet at the stores and they would want to know all that happened the day before. And them old men would be sitting around talking about everything, and all of a sudden you'd see somebody walk in the store because the phone had rung. And they'd come running back out with a smile on their face, and they'd say, "Hey, do you know what just happened? John Doe down the road just got arrested for speeding. And he may just got pulled over and given a speeding ticket," but it all went out. How many wants a refuge that you can share your heart with? I know I do. I want to be able to go to someone and just sit down and cry. By the way, men cry too, so you can't hold that against anybody. To be able to sit down and just cry and weep and just let everything out. David starts off chapter number 9 with this. He said, I will praise thee, O Lord, with my whole heart. I will show forth all thy marvelous works. I will be glad and rejoice in thee. I will sing praises to thy name, O thou most high. When mine enemies are turned back, they shall fall and perish at thy presence. For thou hast maintained my right and my cause. Thou sattest in the throne judging right. Thou hast rebuked the heathen. Thou hast destroyed the wicked. Thou hast put their name, thou hast put out their name forever and ever. O thou enemy, destructions are come to a perpetual end, and thou hast destroyed cities. Their memorial is perished with them. But the Lord shall endure forever. He hath prepared his throne for judgment, and he shall judge the world in righteousness. He shall minister judgment to the people in uprightness. The Lord also will be a refuge for the oppressed, a refuge in times of trouble. The Lord will be, look what he says, verse number 9, the Lord also will be a refuge for the oppressed. And he'll be a refuge in the time of trouble. Now, he also spoke prior to that about singing praise, to get a lifted heart. When you get down and out, when you're burdened, when you're saddened, when you're troubled, one of the greatest uplifts you will find is to simply start singing. To sing a song of praise, of worship, joy. It can be one of the saddest songs that's known in the Christian songbooks, in all the songbooks. It can be the saddest one, but you can find relief in it because you are opening up your heart and soul. So the psalmist David was singing these psalms of hymns or praises to God because of a sorrowful heart, because of a joyful heart, because of a heart that he had to get out of him. He had to release. And he wrote them down for us. That you and I can go back and look at the psalmist David. Look at how he felt. I want to say this to you tonight. Look around the church. Look at one another. And when you look at one another, you will see that you're not the only one that's facing something hard. Sometimes I thought that I was in it by myself, or Danielle was in it by herself. I never understood the problems. And then I began to see different ones that have opened up and began to tell me their heart. Tell me what's going on in their life. And I realize that we may not be in the same exact boat, but we own the same sea. Dealing with our own tribulations, our own stress, our own strife, our own discontentment, our own problems. Each one of us is dealing with something totally different, but we're all dealing with something that's major in our life. Did I just hit the nail on the head? Each one of us need to find relief. Find a moment to get away. I encourage you daily to find a few moments, either of the morning, at night, or at noon, whenever, and get by yourself. Get to a place where that you can sit down with just you and God and just let it out. Just let it go. You say, well, preacher, that don't help sometimes. I need somebody to talk to. I need a human face sitting across from me. Then church, call me. I'll be more than happy to sit down and talk with you. And guaranteed that what you tell me will not leave my lips back out into the community. And it won't come back into this church. Why? Because that is classified as a pastor and congregation relation. And I take that as a highest priority. Not to go out and tell all the things about Tommy Bailey. I might pick on him or pick at him. He likes to pick back. But anything that Tommy Bailey confides in me and says to me, I'm not going to go out here and tell Robert Jordan or Cecil McLean about it. It's going to stay right here. But you know what, though? If I come to you and I say, you know what, your pastor needs somebody just to talk to a minute, I expect the same thing out of you. That's how we're supposed to work. We're supposed to be a shoulder for one another. When you can't get it all off just in a moment of quiet time with God and you need somebody to sit down with, church, find a Christian brother or sister, sit down with them, confide in them, and if somebody confides in you, you keep it in your mouth. Don't let it back out. Well, I don't want to give them no more stress than they're already under. It's not giving them no more stress. They may offer you, if you're talking to a man, they may offer you an empty box to climb into. They may offer you a solution. Now, ladies, don't get upset with the man because he offers you a solution. It's how this thing is wired in a man. Just like talking to a woman and they begin to get emotional. They might cry about it. Men don't get scared and freaked out and try running away from it. That's just how a woman deals with it. If she is in touch with the emotional side. That's how God created her. That's how God created the man. But we ought to confide in one another just to get it off of our chest. But church, I encourage you tonight to find refuge. Now we know that we can find the refuge in God, but we can sometimes find refuge in one another. Now, Psalmist David also goes on to say this in verses 7 and 8. But the Lord shall endure forever, and he hath prepared his throne for judgment. And he shall judge the world in righteousness. But listen to what he says. He shall minister judgment to the people in uprightness. Minister to the hearts. That broken heart can be poured out to God. And it can be mended. That troubled heart can be poured out to God and can be mended. Maybe not a complete fix. I know some in here has gone through something for more than just months at a time. Have faced things for years. And sometimes it seems that it don't ever get any better than it already is. It's been this way for so long, I've grown used to it. I'm used to how things happen. I'm used to what has taken place. But let me ask you a question. Are you really used to it? Or have you just grown immune? Immune to the heartache. immune to the trials, immune to the tribulation? Have you grown immune to what's going on? I look throughout the congregation and I see ones that are taking care of a loved one that's sick. That's a hard job to do right there. My hat's off to anybody that's taking care of a spouse or a family member. My hat's off to you. That's a hard job. Or someone that has had to take care of a family member. That was a hard job. Church, I don't know what you're going through. I know some of yous, some in here have opened up, and I know what you're experiencing. I see it in your face. Just like somebody asked me one day, I was talking with them, and they asked the question along the line of, so how are you doing? And I gave the normal response. I smiled and said, I'm okay. And on the inside, I was tore all to pieces, ready to crack. I was that pressure cooker ready to blow the top of the stove off. And I said, I'm okay. And that person said, no, really, preacher, how are you doing? I shared my heart with you. Now, won't you share your heart with me? And that person I opened up to, and it was like a flood of emotions. And they know who they are. And God allowed that person to be my confidant. Allowed me to open my heart and pour everything out. And we sat at the table and we wept together. And when I left, I felt a lot better. Was the problems gone? No. Was it still there when I got back? Yeah. Still had to face it. But you know what? I was able to face it with a different attitude, with a joy in my heart again, with an excitement in my heart again, with a love again. And I encourage you, whoever you are here tonight, I know you're tired. I know you're wore out. I know you're exhausted. I know you may be ready to crack, and we're closing right now. You're ready just to break. Your heart has grown cold. Your heart's tired. You're immune to it. And you've come to the point where you say, what will be, will be. I'm just over it. Whoever you are here tonight, and I know you're here. I know there's more than just one that's listening that is thinking, boy, this hits me right on the toes. This has affected me. I want you to listen very carefully. David said that the Lord was our refuge. The Lord is going to minister judgment and uprightness. The Lord will minister to your heart. You just got to be willing to open it. Open it with somebody. Open it with somebody. Let it out. Tell them. And when you pour out everything you got, and there's no longer build up, God can come in and bring joy back in. But as long as we get so tight and so wound up, there's no way nothing can come in. There's no way nothing can make a difference. We have to first unwind. We have to let it out. So I'm going to ask you to stand to your feet at this time. Every head bowed and every eye closed for just a moment. No one looking around. I know I was talking to more than just myself tonight. I know I was talking to more than just one. I know that there's a many that's here tonight that needs refuge, that needs to unwind, that needs joy back in the heart. And there's nothing wrong with coming and saying, God, things have just gotten so hard lately. God, help me to unwind. Help me to let loose. Help me to find somebody that I can confide in. Help me just to talk. Help me to be able to just unloose my bottled frustrations. Who here tonight will step out and come and say, God, I'm wore out and I'm tired. God, I just need some strength. I need some enjoyment back in my life. I need a little ray of sunshine. God, I need that strength. Will you come tonight? As we tarry for just a moment, who here will be willing to step out and come? Father, we come to you tonight. God, each one of us, if we will open up and admit to it, we're stressed, we're wore out, and we're tired. And God, we're like a pressure cooker that could be ready to explode. God, we understand tonight that in our trials, in just general everyday life, things get us down, but God, there are those things that have continued on for an amount of time that breaks the heart, causes us to reach a point of depression, sorrow, sadness. And God, we get so balled up in our emotions, so balled up in our heart that we're unable to let it out anymore. I pray tonight that each and every one that's here, God will find a way to let it loose. God, that we'll find someone that we can trust, to confide in, to talk to. But God, I pray tonight that you will let us see that refuge in you for the oppressed. Father, that we can find that joy once again in you. And God, we'll praise you and we'll honor you for it. Now it's in the name of Christ Jesus we do pray and we ask. Amen. You have been listening to a worship service from St. John Fwb Baptist Church. We thank you for taking time to listen to our CD. If you do not have a home church, we cordially invite you to join us in one of our services. Our service times are Sunday school at 10 a.m. with morning worship beginning at 11 a.m. Our Sunday night service begins at 6 p.m. and our Wednesday Bible study begins at 7 p.m. We are located at 1843 St. John Church Road, Patrick, South Carolina, 29584. We hope to see you there. For more information, feel free to call us at 843-498-6540.